Hey guys, welcome back to Cards and Comics. And today I've got a little bit of a different video. I'm going to talk to you about some times when, it's okay to overpay. And, as a collector, I think, you have to have this mentality a lot more than if you are an investor because obviously overpaying as an investor is not a great strategy a lot of times. However, I'm going to be very specific about vintage and players, right? Certain players, certain cards in vintage are worth overpaying just because the availability or the ability to get those cards sometimes is limited. And I'm going to specifically talk about overpaying when you can actually see the quality of the card, right? When you're actually at a show and you're, able to really judge the quality of the card because regardless of the grading service, there's variation with grading within the grades and within the numbers themselves. So being able to see how good the card is, in hand before you buy it, is a huge factor. And in fact, that's the number one factor to me in terms of grading or if I'm going to overpay or not, right? Because if I can see the card and see how great it is, then to me, having the ability to overpay for that card or wanting to overpay will be more realistic or likely, right? Because I can see it, I can hold it, I can tell exactly how nice the card is, right? I can also judge for myself if I think the card's been altered, trimmed, because you got to protect yourself, guys. I mean, I know this is hard for people to understand who are new in this hobby, but there are trimmed and altered cards and holders, and so you need to look for the telltale signs. You need to look for cards that are really short in the holder, and you have to be somewhat skeptical. So when you can look at these cards in hand, you can really judge for yourself whether you think you're making a wise investment in a card as well. So that's another reason to maybe overpay because the card's being a real card, right? There's certain sets like 48 Leaf where a majority of the big cards are altered. I'm just going to tell you that right off the bat. If you're a 48 Leaf collector, be very wary because a lot of those cards have been altered now. So the cards I'm going to show you first, and I'll get into the video later about kind of the pricing, but I want to show you the cards I'm going to talk about today. First up is, it's a 1933 Babe Ruth. Zoom in a little bit so you guys can see the hopefully the quality, because this card is really, in my opinion, really nice. And yeah, so we'll put that here. And yeah, so this is the first card. It's the 33 Babe Ruth. And hopefully we can, there we go, get a little bit of a scan here. And I think this card obviously is tough, and the card itself is rare, but the big thing here with this card is just the overall centering, because you're not going to get 8s and 9s in this card. You're going to have to look for 3s and 4s and 2s. Now, when I got this card, which I got this card in 2018 at the National, and all these cards were purchased at the National. In 2018, when I picked this card up, you could still get 2s and 3s and 4s and not have to pay $30,000 or something like they are today. But this is the first card, and I just want to show you the quality of this card. And the next card up I want to talk about is a 53 Topps Mickey Mantle 6.5. Again, this card was purchased at the National. And it was also purchased from a dealer who didn't have any other vintage cards than this card. So if you get in the Wayback Machine to 2018, Mickey Mantle cards are really hot, and the 53 Mantle really took off, at that show. For whatever reason, like there are times when I've gone to nationals and shows where there's a one or two cards in vintage that have just gone nuts. Like 51 Bowman Willie Mays is a good example where all of a sudden that card just became hard to get, and people were just looking for that 51 Bowman Willie Mays. But this show, was Mantle, and this card was one of the cards. 51 Bowman Mantle was also very hot. 52 Topps Jackie Robinson was also hot. So there was a few hot cards of the show, but this is one of them. But, this card, was, at a dealer's table who didn't have any of the vintage. So, and then the next card up we'll talk about is a 55 Topps Roberto Clemente PSA 7. Obviously, this is Clemente's rookie card. And, this is my favorite card in my collection. And, see if we get some focus. And this is, by far, like the card that I will never give up. If I end up not, continuing collecting, this will be the only card. This will be the last card I have, right? It's my favorite card. I've had it. This is the third time I've had it. And, I don't think I'll ever upgrade. I think I had an idea at some point as a kid, that I could have an 8. I called myself a kid, but back when I was in the 20s. And now the pricing, I'm never going to have an 8 unless I just sell my whole collection and just buy that one card. But I think this is a good 7, a little off top to bottom, but it's great color, great focus, and it's a great, card for me, what I can afford, and still have a nice high-end card now. So we'll flip over here to, all right, so we're back, and I'm on BCP, and I'm looking at the 55 Topps Clemente. So I bought the card in July of 2017. And so one thing to remember, in July of 16, so a year before, this card had sold for over $30,000. And pretty crazy, right? So what it's worth today, the last sale was $21,000. Before that, there was a 15, 19, 16. So it's kind of been bouncing. But there have been multiple sales close to $20,000 this year and last. So we'll see. Right now the VCP average price is $17,500 basically. So 17,000 and change. Now, in 2016, it was coming off of 30,000 and change. Now, in July of 17, this card had gone all the way down from those highs down to the last sale before the National was $7,200. So $7,200 is what the last sale this card was, and the one before that was $7,200. So 2 sales at $7,200, one for $76, right? So this card was pegging, $7,500, right? And so the dealer, only one dealer had the card of the whole show. I'm going to tell you that right now. There was only one of these cards at the show. And so I ended up buying this card from a dealer for $8,500. And I had sold a bunch of cards at that show to specifically buy this card back. I had sold my 7 when I moved to New York, and so to help pay for some of the move. And so I really wanted it back, and it was like a big hole missing in my my collection, or in my soul, not having this card in my collection. So it was the alpha and omega. And so the guy wanted $8,500, and he actually wanted closer to. He actually told me he was looking for $10,000. That's what he had set his price point at, and he wasn't wanting to come down. But the card had been selling so frequently below, $10,000. That I got him down to $8,500, and that was the lowest he's going to go. $1,300 over what the last sales had been, the last 2 sales. So obviously I was going to have to overpay. And then the card never, got all the way down to $6,000 in August. So I was $2,500 in the red. If you want to just look at value, and it really didn't change much. You'd have these kind of sales, but this card was $6,000 plus for a while, and then you hit $8,000 once in a while. But it wasn't until really last year that the card really started bringing over the $8,500. So for over 2 years, I had basically overpaid, and I just I knew. I just knew I wanted the card, and I knew I was going to get a lot of chances to get it because on eBay they don't come up very often. And I had the money at that point. I sold cards to get it, and I went ahead and did it. And that's as a collector. That's a collector's decision. This isn't about me trying to say, okay, I want to have a Clemente rookie card and have as little in it as possible. So when I resell it, I'm going to make a lot of money. This is me saying I sold a lot of my collection to be able to afford this card, and I'm going to get the best one I can find. This one meets my criteria, and I'm going to have to pay a little bit more than I want for it. And now it's okay because the card is consistently bringing over $8,500 now. I mean, it's basically doubled in price since I bought it, and so everything's good. So it did work out. Now moving on to the 33 Ruth, which I purchased in 2018. This was a little bit of a similar story. So this card doesn't sell that often, the Red Ruth, I call it. And leading up into 2017, in 2017 the card was selling between 4,000 and 6,000, so again around 5,000. $5,400 in January without a sale between January and October. So obviously the Nationals in July. So in July of 18, the last sale was in January and it was $5,400. And so the guy wanted, I think around $7,000 for the card. And, the card had never brought $7,000. And when I talked to him, and this is, why I'm saying, if you go to the National, and I know I didn't do a National pre-video, but I would say is, there's always these like one-off tables that have really good stuff, and maybe their pricing's a little weird. So you don't stop there and you don't really talk to him. But then I started talking to him. And then I found out, well, this was a card from his personal collection, and he had just brought it to kind of show off and say, I've got this really, really nice Ruth card. And the card is super nice. You saw it's beautiful red. It's got perfectly centered. It's got some white borders. It's just a really nice Ruth card for a 4. And so I was, very interested, and I had, again, sold a lot of cards, and I had some extra money. I just got a bonus at work, so I was had some cash, and so, I was talking to him, and I said, look, the card was VCPing around $5,000. It hadn't sold anywhere close to $7,000 in its history up until that point, for over a year. And so I just, was trying to see if he would come down, and he said, well, the lowest I'm going to take is $6,500. I'm not going to take any amount less because I didn't come to the show to sell it. I just came to kind of show it off. And if somebody threw me a big number, I would sell it, but I don't really want to sell it. And so I said, okay, well, I'll do $6,500. And he was just kind of looked at me. He's like, well, literally $1,000 over the VCP in the last sale, and he took it. And so I got the card for $65. And again, the card never got above 65 until 2019, around the same time the National was in 2019. And then it went to 8,000, but still there were sales in 2019 of 6,500. So, I hadn't really made any money, theoretically, the card was selling for 7,000, 6,000, 9,000. Then obviously in 20, the card went up, and then now the last sales have, there was this crazy, I don't know, like who that sale was, $57,000. Come on. But, back here where, you've got multiple sales in the 25,000 plus, the last sale was 32,000. It's tracking at $29,000 average price in VCP. So obviously, everyone could say, oh, you're $6,500, you've almost like, quadrupled your money, or, maybe even, about quadrupled your money. Okay. But for the longest time, if you look at this flat curve, it had not done that. And that's the thing about it too, is, if you're investing for the long term, this is sort of the good thing. I'm not a big Magic the Gathering investor, but I used to play the game, and I had a lot of the cards that are worth a lot of money now at one point. And I go and see Rudy's videos because I like his personality. He just did a video where he talked about this, kind of the idea that, these higher class assets in the collectibles market, like a Babe Ruth, there is very little risk in putting your money into them, even if they stay flat for a year, right? And again, I put the video out about the myth around that there was no movement in the card market. Well, I mean, you can look here. I mean, the card did move, from 65, closer to $8,000. So that's a $1,500 gain. I mean, and then it started selling for 10,000, 13,000, 15,000. So it did move a little bit during that time period. But the idea was just this: is that the market didn't have tons of sales because this card's a little bit rare. And just knowing that, and knowing that it's basically the greatest player, one of the greatest players who ever played, you don't feel as risky when you're making that purchase. And I could tell the guy really didn't want to sell it, and I felt kind of bad a little bit because I felt like it'd be, because I had the same exact feeling when I sold my 55 Clemente and my 54 Aaron, both sevens, when I moved to New York and was very scared about having to pay for the move and needing to have the money. And I was like, well, I just got to have the money. And, but, it hurt my soul to sell those cards. And I could tell it was hurting him a little bit to sell it to me, but, he knew he was getting a good deal. I mean, it was too good for him to pass up. But, that's how you got to kind of work the national. The card was so nice that it was worth the money. And today, I would say that it's a high-end 4, and it would bring what the market's going to bring, or even more, because I think people want that card to be centered and have great color. And then lastly is the 53 Mantle. This card was a little unique because it has the issue of the half-grade pricing. So anyone who's in vintage knows the half grades are tough because you have to argue when you're selling them that they're worth more. I have a lot of dealers who've been like, I don't give half grades, more money, or I just treat them like they're the grade, that they're the grade on the card, like a 6.5 is a 6. I've had some, give more, but it's very, so a lot of times you don't have a lot of sales data on the half grades. It's really tough. It makes the card actually harder to sell, in my opinion. But, when the cards do have enough data to kind of make good comps, then they're great to have because generally they're worth more, or a lot more in some cases. But in this case, there was a lot of data. So if you go back into 2018 July, this card in a PSA 6 was selling right at $5,000. Boom, $5,000, 48, 55, 52. It's a $5,000 card. 40, 49, 55. So you could peg it, in a 6 at 5,000. Now the 6.5, and there was actually 2 sales, which is really weird. This card in July 2015, and they were both for $6,500, and that's kind of fishy. So that might be an issue where the card sold, didn't sell, and sold again. But okay, $6,500, and so. So the dealer has the 2 data points: $5,000 for a 6, $6,500 for a 7, or sorry, 6.5, and we're talking, and the guy wants 8,000, and I'm like, man, it's a lot, it's 1,500 over what it's bringing, and even as a 6.5 and a 6 is bringing like 5, and a half grade is a little hard to sell. I was trying to give him. To come down a little bit. And fortunately, I had a card he was really interested in. I had a 98 SP Authentic Peyton Manning rookie that I had picked up, earlier, not earlier in the show, but earlier in the year, because, there was, Peyton was, specking on Peyton, and I think it was either his last year or whatever. But Peyton just broke a bunch of records. So that card was hot again. It was a PSA 9, so it was a good grade. That card's hard to grade. He's really wanting that card because he was all into the new stuff, and so he really wanted the Manning. So we were able to work out a cash trade deal of the National, with the Manning and everything, and it came up to be with the Manning of the deal like $6,500 total, right? but cash wise, it was a lot lower. He gave me like full value trade on the Manning. So you could say like, okay, well, it was kind of not an overpay, but if you look at it, um, the card had sold a little earlier at 6,000, and so in May, and so like it was tenuous if it was 6,500 a card, but the idea was I was able to get that cash value down quite a bit with the Manning, and I feel like he actually paid me more than I could ever have gotten for the Manning at the show, so it kind of worked in my favor, but at the end of the day, I think it was, if you were to put the value of the Manning with what I paid him, it was like $7,000, for example. You know, I paid right around 6,500, but when everything was said and done, I probably gave him, air quotes, $7,000 of value for the card. So I overpaid for that card a little bit. And again, it's not had a lot of sales, but again, in 19 it was still selling for 6,500 and 7,000. It never really picked up again much over 7,000 until last year. Then it hit 10,000, then 11,000, 12,000, and then last sale was close to 16 and averages in 13. So again, I doubled down on that card as well, which you could say for most vintage cards. It's not a, if you had any rookie cards from that time period, you probably could say you doubled. It's not just I was super smart and did this, but the point is just in every instance I had to give more value than the card was worth. In some cases, a lot more. But the point was, and the point of the video is just this is for anyone getting into the market, and you're wanting to do some longer term investment, and you really want to have some idea of like how to look in the future. Is don't be afraid to buy the big ticket or the higher value cards when you get a chance, when you have the money, you're ready to go, you have the cards you can trade or whatever you got to be able to get some of these bigger ticket items of these harder to find and higher grade cards that are very popular, because even if you have to overpay in year one, in year 2, year 3, year 4, if you keep it from a long-term perspective, usually you're going to come out really, really well. Not always happens, doubling and tripling and quadrupling, but the idea is like it's a very safe investment. You're going to eventually get, from upside down to a positive. But the point is that as a collector, so that's, if you're more of the long-term investor, as a collector, just having the card in your collection matters a whole lot, and you never know when you get another chance again. Because for me as a collector, I have to be in the right place with the right amount of money or the right amount of cards to make these deals happen. And I don't always get the chance to do that throughout the year. I don't always go to a big card show where I've got money, I got cards, and I've got that card sitting there waiting for me to buy. If I go to the local shows, you're not going to find 53 Mantles and 33 Ruths that someone's willing to even part with, let alone have at the show. So it's like the ability to do that is limited. And so when you get the chances, yeah, you may have to overpay, but if you know the quality of card you're getting back and you're happy with it, or you think it's high end for the grade or exceptional, then my advice is do the deal. Try to get that deal done, because you never know when you're getting the chance, and it's all about an opportunity cost. And if you lose that opportunity, it may not come again for another year or so, and that card might be $500 to $1,000 more expensive at that point. So to where now that if you made that deal a year ago, you would be either even or ahead, but you may not get the opportunity even a year from now to have that card available, because a lot of this stuff is hard to find, and you just don't have the ability to just find it whenever you want, because eBay is a cash deal. You better be ready to pay right then, and you don't have the opportunity to trade or do some other financial maneuvers to be ready. So that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Kind of give some examples. Obviously I've heard of a lot more, as I'm much more of a collector, long-term investor than I am a flipper, so this happens a lot in my world. So yeah, I don't do a lot of buying and flipping and the same day type deal. So this is kind of how I roll. So all right. So I'll see you guys next time, and hope you guys have a great day. Bye.